Did you know that there is a secret meaning of Ramayana that you do not know about? A very new, a very different kind of a perspective. Ramayana is not just a story, but a guide through transformation. Ramayana, in a way, teaches us how we heal ourselves, how we cure ourselves, how do we free ourselves from the pain, and how can we find out the path back to peace and happiness. But we often listen to story only on the surface level. We know of the story, everybody has watched it, seen it, heard it, read it. Let me ask you this question. When do you think Ramayana happened? Now, a lot of people would say it happened in this particular yuga, But what if I tell you that Ramayana is happening every single day? What if I tell you Ramayana is happening several times a day inside you? Now, there is a theory of multiverse, but I'm not talking about that. Ramayana is happening right inside you, right now. You see, Ramayana is not just a story, but you are the story. It is happening right inside you. You would believe that you are a consciousness. You are a vast kingdom of consciousness, of awareness. Let's call it Ayodhya, the unconquerable realm. And like every kingdom, there is also a king that governs this kingdom, Dasharatha. Dasharatha is your exhausted self, tired from performing, hustling, struggling, trying to manage this kingdom, trying to get things to work together. King Dasharatha had 3 wives, and so does your inner Dasharatha. He also has 3 wives. First is Kaushalya, the gentle, accepting, nurturing wife that says everything will be fine. Then there is Sumitra, a balanced, supportive wife that says you need to find the middle ground. And the third wife is Kaikeyi, the ambitious, demanding wife that says fight for everything that you deserve. These are 3 different voices within you. One of them is usually dominant. Let me ask you this question, which do you think is loudest in you? There also are 4 sons of this inner Dasharatha, just like in the real story. Rama, the highest self, tall, always standing for what's right, even in the situations that are tough, especially in the situations that are tough. Then we also have Bharata, the responsible one that keeps up the promises and the commitments that they've made. And then Lakshmana and Shatrugna are twins, not identical twins, but twins. Lakshmana is your inner loyalty, inner support, your unconditional love towards your higher self that says, I believe in the higher self, never abandons the self. And Shatrugna is the fierce protector. He creates boundaries and says no to whatever diminishes you. Now, most times in our lives, our inner Rama is sleeping. Lakshmana is ignored and Shatrugna is silenced. Only Bharata is awake. The responsibility is awake in us. Now, our inner Dasharatha is also tired from all this hassling all the time, the office stress, the relationship stress, the physical health that we are trying to manage. We are trying to manage all the parts within our body to work together, within our life to work together. Now, Dasharatha also has some old promises to keep. He had promised some time back to ambition that I'll listen to you. Whenever there is a right time, whenever you ask for something, I will grant you 2 wishes. That is my promise to you. Now a critical situation comes. Rama, being the highest self, the oldest son, the wisest of them all, should ideally be ruling the kingdom. But Kaikeyi, the ambitious voice, sees this opportunity and asks for 2 wishes. Make responsibility Bharata and duty the king, and do not listen to the higher self. Send him to exile for years. Ignore him. Now, Dasharatha is bound by his old promises. Like we are bound to our habits, our tired self is bound by the patterns we live in. Survival takes over that kingdom and you forget who you truly are, and your highest self is sent away. This in your life is like standing at the verge of deciding whether to stay in a lifeless job or do something that you love. It's when you're thinking whether to stay in this toxic relationship, this unhappy relationship, or leave. It's when you when somebody just hit you verbally or physically or something, and you want to plot a revenge, that you're standing at that verge and you're trying to decide what to do next, you send your higher self away. And here's something interesting. Your inner Rama, your higher self, does not resist, does not fight back. He knows that the palace is not the home. The real palace can never be given or taken away from you. It can only be discovered, and discovered in the wilderness of the forest, that is the unknown. And you take up that challenge. The inner self decides to move into the unknown and take the plunge in belief. Now, your higher self, when it leaves your consciousness, your awareness, when you are forgetting about higher self, it doesn't just go alone. Your creative wisdom, your capacity to see possibilities and find solutions, your intuitive, innate intelligence also goes with it. You are unable to think clearly. In survival mode, you lose your ability to solve anything. And just when you're about to be leaving, your love and support towards your higher self that believes in the higher self also leaves with them. In real life, you cannot listen to or touch your higher self. You cannot find solutions, and you become desperate and you become anxious. And that voice that says, I trust my higher self, that part that refuses to give up otherwise, also goes away. Now, this forest that they go to, the exile, is a dark, unknown, unpredictable place, very uncomfortable. But this is where your real education happens. When you do not know anything, when you cannot see any hope, anything happening in your life that is promising. And here, something magical happens. You meet new friends. You'll meet Bharadwaja. You'll meet your inner Bharadwaja. In conversation with him, you'll realize, why did you leave your palace? Why did you leave that comfort zone? And this is where you realize that palace is where you lived, but forest is where you learn. Living in the familiar made you competent, but moving in the unfamiliar taps into your limitless potential. That is the first step. That is the first person you meet. That is the first thought you have in your transformation journey. And then you meet Atri, a sage who has transcended past, present, and future. He gives you weapons, not for a war, but for your inner battle. He gives you a bow, which is attentive focus. He gives you arrows, which is clear intentions. And he gives you a sword, a discriminating wisdom that cuts wrong from right. Now, by now, you have already started to transform in this pain. You had stopped asking, how much more time is there in this life, in this situation for me to suffer, in this forest, in this unknown? And you start asking yourself, what is it trying to teach me? What is this situation trying to make me aware of? And this is where transformation is happening. This is where mastery is building up. And like every transformation, here also there would be test. And the first test that comes to you is something surfaces. An unchecked desire. Your inner Surpanakha. It could be an addiction, a person that seems perfect, an opportunity that looks golden, but you may have to do something wrong or cheat somebody to be able to do that. Surpanakha sees the highest self, the peace one has, the glory, the control, the centeredness, the wholeness, and the happiness. And it says, I want that. In order for peace to exist, it should be with me. It should only be by attaining me, the desire, unless there should not be any peace. I want to own this peace forever, just being the way I am. I don't want to change. And it asks to marry it. But peace can only be experienced. It cannot be possessed. And what does peace do? It rejects it politely. It says no. I am peace. I'm going to be there. I don't care about the desires. Now, desire thinks, if I cannot break the peace directly, because that's what peace is, so let me do one thing. Let me attack his wisdom. Let me attack Sita. And when she is about to attack Sita, Lakshman, the supporter of peace and wisdom, cuts these desires. And Surpanakha, your inner Surpanakha, gets her nose cut. The ego is now hurt, deeply hurt. An unmet desire. That's what Surpanakha is. So what does the unmet desire do? Whenever the ego is hurt, it runs to its 10-headed brother, our own shadow self. This is where we have abandoned or rejected everything about ourselves. This is our shadow self. And it says to this shadow self, her brother, that they have hurt me, my ego. They've created boundaries against me. They're not allowing me to enter. What does the shadow self say? It listens very carefully. It rages, plans, and decides. Since I won't attack peace directly, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to steal his wisdom, his ability to solve problems, to see solutions. What happens next is, Maricha appears in the forest of the unknown, the master of illusion. Not as a demon, but as the most beautiful, the most tempting thing. A golden deer with blue eyes. And that in your life, it could be the perfect job, a relationship that seems like the perfect cure to all my problems, a rare opportunity that is too good to be true. But something that will cost you everything that you've built so far. And your wisdom gets intoxicated with its beauty. Your wisdom tells your higher self to get it for her. It's been many, many years in the unknown, struggling, and finally something luring is appearing right in front of you. And we should go and we should go and grab it. We should not allow it to let it go. We should just grab this opportunity before it runs away. This golden deer. Now, the higher self knows a lot of things. The Rama inside us feels that there is something off about this deer. He senses for it to be something superficial. It's not for what it seems like. But wisdom, because it is intoxicated, continues to insist. And Rama, your inner higher self, is all about love. So he goes on to fetch it for her. But before leaving, he instructs loyalty and support to not leave the wisdom unguarded. And he goes against his gut feeling. Now in the forest, after he has gone, he keeps chasing the golden deer. He keeps running here and there. But illusion is illusion. So at the end, he gets so frustrated, he shoots an arrow of focused attention and looks intently towards this illusion. What happens when you look at the illusion? It fades away, it dies, it disappears. But before leaving, it does show its truer self. It leaves its pretense, and the real demon is clearly visible. But there is one thing that it does, is just before it is about to be dying, it shouts out to the wisdom Sita and support, loyalty, Lakshmana, protect me. Now wisdom gets worried. It tells support, loyalty to protect the self. Loyalty knows the higher self doesn't need any protection. It is complete in itself. But then wisdom turns against and questions loyalty for its loyalty. It speaks some harsh, forceful words to be able to move support. And now, because of the insisting, loyalty also leaves after the higher self. But before leaving, creates some boundaries, some Lakshman Rekha. In your life, it is the non-negotiables. Suppose you tell your friends or your company or your colleagues, I don't drink, I don't lie, I don't tolerate disrespect. These are the boundaries. And he tells wisdom, do not cross this. Nobody would be able to enter this boundary, but you are not supposed to step out of it, otherwise you will not be safe. But here's something about boundaries. The moment you step out, there are predators that are waiting outside. And now wisdom is alone, unguarded, and the shadow self, Ravana, appears. Not as himself, but as a sage. A kind gesture in your life, a false promise, a pretense of a goodwill. In your life, it could be, I'm just needing validation because everyone will hate me otherwise. I'm just lying because I don't want to cheat somebody. I want to make somebody comfortable. And that's how it's done. I'm not cheating anybody. I'm not raging. I'm just protecting my territory. You just give excuses to yourself because your shadow self has shown something from the previous times. Now, wisdom is quite generous and doesn't want anybody to go empty-handed. But now, shadow self uses the same generosity to manipulate wisdom. As soon as the wisdom steps out of the boundaries, the self-made promises, the principles we have in our lives, when we go beyond it, when we reject those principles, when we dismiss them, when we ignore them, our shadow self turns back into its real form. It can come as past regrets, shame, or guilt. And then this Ravana seizes the wisdom and he flees her into his kingdom, the dark world of the unconscious mind. Now, wisdom is lost. Even the highest self, without the wisdom, feels disconnected, feels incomplete. But here's something quite interesting. When you lose something that you love really the most, allies appear. First, you meet Jatayu, your inner Jatayu, your inner witness, the old dying eagle that says, I know what happened to you in the past and it wasn't your fault. It is a dying voice. And before dying, it points you to the highest truth, that your wisdom is out there in the shadow world. If you want to bring her back, that's where your healing is. You have to go there. And then once you move a little forward, you meet Sugriva, your primal energy, your breath, your life force. And he says, just like you have been exiled, he speaks to inner Rama, that just as you've been exiled, I have also been exiled. Bali in your life is like trauma, stress has taken over my kingdom. In your world, you can see that you cannot breathe harmoniously when there is stress, anxiety, and trauma. And these conditionings, this Bali takes over half of your power, just like real Bali used to do. Sugriva says, get me my kingdom, allow the breathing to appear, to come back to normal state, and I will help you find your wisdom. I will help you find Sita. Now, you can really relate to it when a coach or a therapist asks you to breathe so that you will be able to find your ability to think clearly. Higher self helps Sugriva get back his kingdom, as in the breathing is restored. And that's when Sugriva summons his complete army to direct him towards this higher purpose. In your life, it is like all of your inner resources, all the inner vanaras are aligned for that one purpose, to get back wisdom. Angad comes in, the courage. Then you also have Jamvan, the ancient wisdom. Then you have Nala Nila, your problem-solving capability. And finally, Hanuman, who is your spiritual heart, your devotion, your capacity to surrender to the highest self and his purpose. Now, when spiritual heart, Hanumana, hears about the lost wisdom, he doesn't just look for maps or backup. He just says, I'm going to find her. No matter where she is, I am going to find her. But from where we are to our unconscious world, there is an ocean of impossibility that needs to be crossed. The conscious reality and your unconscious mind, there is this ocean that needs to be crossed, and everybody is looking at each other. Who is going to cross this ocean? Nobody is capable. And that's when the ancient wisdom, Jamban, reminds the spiritual heart, Hanumana, for his forgotten power. He says, you may have forgotten that you have the power, but the power has not forgotten you. What it means in real life is, there is a question that comes to our mind, in our heart. Do you know who you were before the world taught you who to be, who you were? Do you remember that you had dreams before people started to tell you that these are unrealistic? Now, Hanumana, our spiritual heart, remembers who he has been always. And what he does is he leaps across the impossible ocean through the clouds. What are these clouds? The realm of faith. This leap is like transcending about your current reality into faith. That's what we do when we take up that leap, when we quit that job, when we quit that relationship and we are into that unknown. We take that leap in faith. And what does he do? He arrives in the dark world looking for wisdom. What is wisdom doing? Wisdom is sitting right next to the Ashoka tree, surrounded by demons. In your life, it is negative thoughts. But wisdom is untouched and waiting patiently. Spiritual heart tells the wisdom that higher self, Rama, has not forgotten you and you are loved and remembered. But you must come with me. But what does wisdom say? Wisdom says, I shall wait for the highest self. Why? Because there are some battles that are needed to be fought. There are some wounds that require integration. They're not just for the rescue. In healing, we have to face our shadow self. We have to fight our fears. We have to see reality for what it is. So Hanumana is ready to come back. But before leaving, he sets the dark world on fire of awareness. And something in the dark world is now broken, so that the new light can enter. It's just like that. When you look at your past patterns, they're not as strong as they used to be. The foundation has been broken. So when you look at your patterns, these dark memories, they're not the same anymore. They start to fade away. They lose their strength. And that is what spiritual heart does before leaving Lanka. He puts it on fire. Now is the time for the war, to cross the ocean and all the resources, the inner vanaras, to confront the shadow self. So, in order for us to go from the conscious to the unconscious mind, a bridge has to be made. So, your problem-solving capability, your Nala Nila, begin their construction. But they encounter this impossible task. The bridge cannot be held without a strong foundation underneath. In your life, when you start to question, I must see things before I believe them. Now, what is needed is something to support that bridge, which is faith. These stones of actions, every day, every moment, that build the bridge, float on faith. And the name of Lord holds this faith together. That's why we say, continue to chant. Even people who are not spiritual, affirmations. And that's when all the resources within are aligned with this higher purpose of building that bridge of transformation. Stone by stone, action by action. These actions could be your daily meditation, your gratitude journal, your therapy sessions, your consistently making right choices, your authenticity. Each conscious effort is a decision to say a yes to the right thing, a yes to the action. And now, shadow self knows that there is a bridge that is being built. So in its last attempt to stop them, he sends his spies. You can see it in your life, the disbelief that comes. The questions like, you'll never change, you've tried this before, nothing will happen. These beliefs will come to break that bridge, to hinder your process. But commitment doesn't argue with the doubt. It moves forward. It crosses the bridge. And once it crosses the bridge, when all of your resources are back in the dark world to confront it, is the time for a war. It is not a war of destruction, but it is a war of integration. Each demon that falls is like a fear that has been transformed. Each victory is a limiting belief that is destroyed. In your life, it is like facing addiction, confronting the trauma, embracing the anger or the sadness. And then a fierce battle within us begins to happen. Positive thoughts and negative thoughts start to fight together, fight against each other, breaking habits and forming new ones. This is what we see in our lives, right? When we go into this journey of transformation. In this fight, all of the Ravana's army falls to the ground, including his son, which means all the inherited patterns and false beliefs and family wounds are now dissolving, are falling to the ground, one by one. And power begins to return to where it belongs. You. And in the end, only Ravana remains, the shadow self that faces the highest self. Ravana says that I am invincible, I am immortal, no one can harm me, I cannot be hurt. And this is the final illusion before your transformation. When you think that it cannot happen, it has always been like this, I cannot change, nobody can hurt, the shadow self says, nobody can hurt me, I'm just going to be the way it is, this is my existence, this is your existence. One head gets cut, it grows back again, which means same patterns continue to repeat in our lives. And it keeps happening until you realize, your higher self realize that you cannot kill the shadow. But what you can do is, you can reclaim its power. Negative thoughts cannot be destroyed, but you can always take away the power from them by not giving them attention and thinking about them less. Rama was told that the strength of Ravana, your shadow self, is not in its heads, the symptoms that we see, it's in its core. So that's when somebody tells you that do not fight the symptoms, address the core wound itself. That's what it is meant. And there goes the final arrow, the Brahmastra. In your life, it is the deepest compassion towards your shadow self. The things that you had been rejecting so far about yourself, you embrace them, you see them, and you accept them. And what happens then is, your shadow falls to the ground. It doesn't have any ground to hold. When Ravana falls to the ground, that is when you see that the shadow self is with the highest knowledge about your own self. You know it is the mirror. You realize that what lays before you is not a monster, but a part of you that always wanted to protect you. That is what our subconscious patterns are, right? And the fear is now freed. The shadow was never the enemy, but he was only a guardian of your power. So your higher self sends Lakshmana, the support, to have Ravana's darshan, because in that darkness there was wealth of wisdom to help oneself realize. It was the seat of knowledge, the highest knowledge about ourselves, Ravana, our shadow self, our unconscious ocean. Finally, after all this war, the creative wisdom, our intuitive intelligence is freed. And then they all set the higher self, the wisdom and the loyalty, they all return back towards the kingdom of consciousness, of awareness, of Ayodhya. And we realize, oh, we've transformed now. What follows from there with this realization is Ram Rajya. The integrated consciousness now rules. One operates from the highest state of truth, because one has realized, one has won over himself. We are aligned with values. Every thought serves the truth. Every emotion serves love. Every past serves your highest purpose. And we make decisions not from fear, but from our center. Living from love and not need. And that's when I say, you are the kingdom. You are the search and the finding. You are the question, and you yourself are the answer. Now, having spoken about being the answer, I have a big announcement to make. I have my book, Becoming the Answer, out there on Amazon. I'll provide you with a link and you can go and read it through. Everything that I've been speaking about, starting from epigenetics to neurobiology to affirmations to belief to manifestation to yoga to spirituality to psychology to healing to transformation to everything that I continue to speak about is out there in the book. It is a pure journey towards your inside. How do you find answers within you, and what are you comprised of? It's a wealth of information, and I can recommend that you can opt to read the book. It's quite close to me. Thank you so very much for joining today, and if you like the kind of talks that we are doing here, you're more than welcome to subscribe to this channel, Mind Healing with Bhavish. I am Bhavish Ahuja, a transformational coach and a therapist, and thank you so much for tuning in today. I shall see you in the next video very soon. Until then, stay blessed, stay healthy, and catch hold of this wisdom if you can. It's quite needed. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.